The National Prosecuting Authority is adamant that it will stop at nothing to prevent former President Jacob Zuma from having another delay in his corruption case. The trial is meant to finally get underway this morning, but the former president says this would be a miscarriage of justice. The matter, as we now know, is years in the making, and Zuma still believes that the NPA is doggedly pursuing him for political means. He also wants State Prosecutor Billy Downer to be removed from the case and is now roping in private prosecutors to achieve this. My co-anchor, Ayanda Nyathi, along with our reporter, Nkhosikhona Duma, are part of our team watching developments for you in Pietermaritzburg this morning. Let's take you live to outside the High Court in Pietermaritzburg. Ayanda, we've heard it before, haven't we? The case is finally set to get underway. What actually happens in court is a completely different story, though.
Yeah, I couldn't phrase it any better, Michelle. And here we are yet again in a moment that I'd like to describe of suspended animation. We're not quite sure which direction things are going to head, despite the fact that we've been here before. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this is an issue that goes all the way back to about the years between 1995 and 2004, when the former president was said to have received more than 790 payments. And this amounts to about 4.1 million rand, all of course in connection with the 1999 arms deal trial. We've also heard of Shabir Sheikh, who is of course the former president's former financial advisor, who is said to have been behind those transactions. And since then, we've been in a situation where we're not quite sure whether the former president will finally be able to defend himself inside court as he claims he wants to do. Developments also taking place as recently as in the past 24 hours, where the former president, through his foundation, has come out yet again to say, as we've mentioned, that if the trial does begin today, he'll see this as some kind of miscarriage of justice. He's of course pushing back on multiple fronts. Not only does he believe that the NPA has some kind of political agenda against him, he believes the man that's leading the NPA's case in the form of Billy Downer does not have the title to prosecute and has therefore evoked Section 106 of the Criminal Procedure Act to try and have Billy Downer removed from this case. But, of course, yesterday we heard that he has something else up his sleeve, and to help us better place, I guess, where we are at this moment, let me bring in my colleague Nkhosikhona Duma, who's with us here at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. And so, Nkhosikhona, here we are, you and I, bright and early on this rainy Monday morning in Pietermaritzburg. It's a long time in the making. Get us up to speed with what's happened so far.
Well, and first and foremost, I think it's best that we start by talking about what we do expect today, and that we expect that the former President Jacob Zuma's legal team will start calling for a postponement into the matter. They've been alleging since the matter started that it is unfair, that the former president is a victim of his political enemies, and this really dates back to the early 1990s, where the former president has alleged that his political foes in the ANC are using this trial to come at him, and so we expect that this particular matter will start off on a dramatic start today, with his legal representatives talking about calling for a postponement because they believe that the NPA is being used by those in power to actually prosecute the president, and we expect the NPA to also, as you correctly put it out, to actually say that that is actually not the case, and they want this matter to continue, and that the former president is using these particular developments to actually delay the matter further.
Yeah, we know that the former president has tried to use the court behind us and the Supreme Court of Appeal to try to get Billy Downer removed from the case. That hasn't worked. Yesterday, we learned of a new strategy that he's likely to use.
Absolutely correct. So the former president is saying that the only way now for him to deal with Advocate Billy Downer, who's the lead prosecutor in this particular matter, is for him to go the private prosecution way, because the NPA, as you know, Ayanda, has previously declined to actually prosecute in this matter because they say there is no evidence that suggests that Mr. Billy Downer actually committed any criminal activity. And the main grab here, perhaps let us remind our viewers, is that the former president is alleging that Advocate Billy Downer disseminated private and confidential information pertaining to his health to the media. Of course, the NPA has denied that, and the NPA also has refused to actually prosecute Advocate Billy Downer on this particular matter. The Jacob Zuma Foundation believes that the NPA is not doing its job, and therefore they want the matter to go now the private way.
Absolutely. Of course, the NPA did not take that lightly. In fact, after the Jacob Zuma Foundation held their briefing yesterday, making that announcement, Nyathi from the NPA also hit back. What did he say?
Well, he says that the actions, the latest announcement by former President Jacob Zuma's legal team are just a further delayed tactics into the matter. The NPA is not the first time that the NPA is alleging that the former president is actually the cause of all these delays in this particular matter. They're saying that the foundation of the former president announcing that they are going the private way is just the private legal way to actually ensure that advocate Billy Downer is prosecuted. It's actually a delay tactic, and it's also a intimidation tactic which the NPA will not entertain.
Yeah. What we also heard from the Jacob Zuma Foundation yesterday is an unequivocal announcement that we are expecting former President Jacob Zuma to be inside court today. It's an important announcement because we know that usually has a bearing on the activity outside court.
You're absolutely correct, and we expect his supporters to actually come in. Yesterday I had a conversation with Carl Niehaus, who has been attending this matter since it commenced. We understand that the usual people who have been coming here, the likes of Nkhosikhona. We also have heard word that the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Magashule, might be here. We've previously seen the likes of Dudumieni. Even Zandile Kumete, by the way, who was elected the chairperson of the ANC in eThekwini. It's going to be interesting if she comes.
Absolutely. Especially when you consider, I guess, perhaps the clout that she has, even though we know that she is perhaps cautiously optimistic given the uncertainty around the step-aside resolution. But that's a completely different case, even though all the activities unfolding here in KwaZulu-Natal. It'll also, I guess, be an incredibly important moment for those who are watching this case, those who've watched over the years, because what the former president has also said in Nkhosikhona is that he is quickly running out of money. We know litigation in this country takes an incredibly deep pocket to be able to do successfully. It will raise questions around how he's able to afford these private prosecutors in a context where he said before that, he's pleaded poverty.
You're absolutely correct. And at one point he said that he wanted to sell socks, didn't he?
Yeah.
And that is, of course, one of the most interesting details about this particular matter. Well, he feels that this matter is unjust and he will go at nothing, even though the former president is saying that he's a pensioner who's only depending on his pension as a former president. He is not willing to take this matter because for him, he also sees this as an opportunity to fight for justice. At one of the rallies that took place outside this particular court, after one of these court appearances, the former president actually said that he hasn't seen real freedom, but he will stop at nothing to fight for it. So, according to him, this is an opportunity to fight for justice that is always fought for as a former freedom fighter, as a former freedom fighter. But interesting, Ayanda, let us just listen to how his foundation is actually prepared for this, because I understand that the Jacob Zuma Foundation held a media briefing yesterday, and the likes of Jimmy Mani spoke.
In his response, His Excellency President Zuma will remind the court that he has long anticipated that the NPA would refuse to prosecute one of their own even after his recent retirement. He therefore informed the court in his previous affidavits that he had instructed his legal team to institute private prosecution proceedings against Advocate Downer with immediate effect, subject obviously to all the required administrative protocols, and as soon as NPA announces its expected bias decision. The instruction will now be put into operation in the next few days.
So there you have it, the spokesperson there of the Jacob Zuma Foundation, Zwanele Manyi, speaking yesterday. What he also mentioned in that briefing is that the foundation was taken aback by what he described as a frenzy of activities in the week gone by. They believe that the NPA has, through nefarious ways, tried to put together statements from a journalist as well as the NPA's Andrew Breitenbach, and they're going to do this with the aim of bringing forward an additional supplementary affidavit to this court that's behind us. The Jacob Zuma Foundation taking exception to that, saying based on that reason and the many others that we've explored for you today, they're going to push for postponement.
Certainly one of the big stories we're tracking for you on this Monday morning. Ayanda, Nyathi and Nkhosikhona Duma, thanks very much indeed for that update.